Hello, and welcome to the House of Law. Tonight, I will guide you into a quiet place, a house set back from the roads, where the dark feels gentle and the air seems to hold its breath. In this first stretch of our night together, we will simply arrive. We will notice the grounds around the building, the small sounds that live outside, and the steady calm that comes when the day is finally far away. If you like this kind of slow storytelling, you can like, subscribe, or share. The House of Law, in whatever quiet way feels right. It helps other tired listeners find their way here when they need a softer place to rest. Now, let your shoulders drop, let your jaw unclench, and if it feels comfortable, take a slow breath in. Then let it go, unhurried. I imagine myself approaching along a narrow path. The ground is firm under my steps, but not loud. The sounds of the world are not gone. They are simply distant, as if someone has turned them down. There is a mild chill, not sharp, just enough to make the skin aware of the night. The air carries the scent of soil and leaves, and something faintly mineral, like stone that has cooled after sunset. Ahead, the house sits in quiet darkness. Not empty darkness, more like a careful kind. The shape of the roofline is clear against the sky. A few tall trees stand nearby, their branches still, or moving only a little, in a breeze that I can hear more than I can feel. A soft rustle travels through the hedges, then fades. A night insect calls once, pauses, and calls again, as if testing the space. Somewhere farther out, there is the low, steady sound of wind in grass. It is not dramatic. It is not urgent. It simply continues, like a calm, patient breath moving across the land. I slow down even more as I come closer. This is not a place to hurry. Each step becomes a small decision. Heel, then toe. A gentle shift of weight, a quiet rhythm. When I stop for a moment, I can hear the building in its own way. Not voices, not movement, just the faint creak of wood settling and the soft tick of something cooling in the night air. The house holds its warmth inside, and on the outside, everything rests. I listen for the nearest sounds. A leaf turns over on the ground. A thin branch taps another. Once, then not again. A moth, or some small winged thing, passes close enough that I can almost sense it. A light flutter that disappears as quickly as it arrives. I let my breathing match the pace of this place. In, slow. Out, slow. There is a particular comfort in being away from daily noise. The kind that usually follows me without asking, the small demands, the buzzing thoughts, the sharp little reminders that time is always moving. Here, the space feels wider. Distance gathers around the house like a quiet boundary, not a wall, just a gentle separation. The road seems far. The screens seem far. The lists and plans seem far. I stand at the edge of the grounds and simply notice how darkness changes things. It smooths the corners. It softens the details. It makes the world feel simpler, as if only the most important shapes remain. The path bends slightly, and I follow it without thinking too much. My feet find their way. The night is cool and steady. Above, the sky is deep, and the stars, if there are any, are subtle, like quiet pinpoints that do not demand attention. Near the house, the air is a little different. It holds the scent of old timber and stone. The ground seems more tended here, less wild, more shaped by patient hands over time. I pause again, and I listen. The soft sounds around the building are like a small, careful orchestra, each one taking its turn. A distant owl, perhaps, too far to be certain. A faint shifting in the canopy. The quiet scratch of something moving through the undergrowth, keeping to itself. Nothing rushes. Nothing calls out for an answer. The night gives permission to slow down. I take another breath in and hold it just for a moment. Then I let it out, as if I am setting down something I have been carrying. Even the idea of time feels gentler here. The minutes do not feel counted. They feel like they are simply passing, like water moving in a dark stream. I step closer to the house and find a place to stand where I can feel the space around it. The walls rise quietly. The windows are dark. The roofline is still. The building is present, solid and calm. A small sound comes from somewhere near the foundation, the tiniest scuttle, then stillness. The night does not explain itself. It does not need to. I let my attention drift outward, across the grounds. There might be a garden somewhere beyond what I can see. There might be a shed, a low stone wall, a path leading into trees. But for now, those are only possibilities, and it is restful to let them remain that way. I focus on what is close. The air, the quiet, my breathing, slow and easy. If a thought from the day wanders in, I do not argue with it. I let it pass, like a cloud that does not have to stay. In the dark, even worries feel less solid. They lose their edges. I stand on the grounds of the House of Law, and I allow the steady night environment to hold me for a while. The house does not ask for anything. The land does not ask for anything. And in that simple absence of demand, rest begins. Another soft breath in, and out, unhurried and quiet. The path leads me closer now, and the observatory begins to feel less like a distant shape on the hill, and more like a place with weight and shelter. The air outside still holds that open, night-cool spaciousness, the kind that makes every small sound seem a little clearer. My steps are quiet on the ground, steady and unhurried. I take my time, letting the pace settle. Near the entrance, the lighting changes. It is not bright. It does not reach far. It is a warm, low glow, placed near the doors, like a small promise that there is rest on the other side. The light sits close to the stone and wood, and it softens the edges of everything it touches. Shadows remain, but they feel calm, arranged. I move toward it without hurrying. The doorway is simple, sturdy. The frame feels older than the night around it, and I find comfort in that. Solid walls, a steady threshold, a place built to stay in one spot while time passes quietly overhead. When I reach the door, I pause for a moment, long enough for my eyes to notice the difference. Outside, the sky is wide and full of distance. Inside, the light is close and contained. The shift is gentle but real. I rest my hand against the surface for a breath, and then the door gives way with a soft sound. Not a creak that asks for attention, just a low, ordinary movement, as if the building expects visitors who arrive with care. Stepping inside changes everything. The air becomes stiller. The night wind is left behind, and the quiet turns deeper, less open, more held. The warmth here is not heat exactly, more like the absence of chill, a stable indoors feeling, simple and reassuring. The lighting near the entry remains low, placed with purpose. It does not demand that I see every detail at once. It only offers enough, a gentle suggestion of floor, wall, and a first stretch of corridor. My eyes take a moment to adjust. At first, the darker interior seems to swallow shapes. Then, slowly, the edges return, the grain of the wood, the cool firmness of stone, the dull sheen where many hands have passed. I blink once, and the space becomes easier to read. I take a few steps forward, careful and even. Each footfall feels different now. Outside, the ground had small variations, pebbles, grass, the faint give of soil. Here, the floor is level and certain. The sound is muted, as if the building is absorbing it. The steadiness of the surface invites steadiness in me. I let my shoulders relax. It is a quiet kind of comfort, to be surrounded by thick walls that do not move. The night can remain vast outside. Inside, the world narrows in a peaceful way. Not cramped, simply contained. A small lamp sits near the door, casting a circle of amber light. The color is gentle on tired eyes. It makes the shadows feel soft, like folded cloth. I stand within that circle for a moment, letting my vision settle, letting the indoors calm replace the outdoors alertness. I notice the transition happening in layers. First, the temperature, steady, then the sound, distant, then the light, dim but warm, and finally, the feeling that my steps have somewhere to go, a clear line from entry to hallway, from hallway to deeper rooms. The observatory does not rush me. It seems to understand the pace of night visitors. I breathe in slowly, and the air smells faintly of stone and old wood, with a clean, dry note beneath it. There is no sharpness, nothing sudden, only the quiet scent of a place used for careful watching. I take one more step forward and let the door settle closed behind me. The latch lands softly. The outside world remains, but it is now at a respectful distance. In the dimness ahead, the interior waits, calm and unchanging, as my eyes continue to adapt and my mind follows them into the gentle dark. The corridor opens into a set of calm halls, and the first thing I notice is how little there is to catch the eye. The walls are plain. The corners are clear. Nothing leans where it might fall. Nothing is left out as if it were forgotten, and that simple order makes the space feel wide, even when it is not. I move at an easy pace. My footsteps sound soft here, not swallowed, not sharp. Just a quiet note that returns to me with a small echo, like the building is awake enough to listen. On one side, a long table sits beneath a shaded lamp. The light does not spread far. It stays close to the work, leaving the rest of the hall in a gentle dimness. On the table, there are tools, but only a few. A pair of small brushes set with their bristles up, a folded cloth, a tin with a tight lid. A notebook closed and squared with the edge of the wood. Nothing feels decorative. Nothing feels hurried. Each object seems to have a single purpose and a single place to return to. I pause and let my eyes rest on the neat line of items. And I think about the kind of hands that keep a room like this. Careful hands. Not anxious, just steady. Past the table is a door left slightly open. Inside is a narrow room with shelves that run from waist height to the ceiling. Every shelf is labeled in simple writing, short words, easy to read in low light. Cloth, wax, oil, twine, paper, small parts in small boxes. The air in here is clean. It holds the faint scent of soap and something dry, like old wood warmed by a lamp. I take one slow step in, then another, and I listen. There is no conversation, no sudden noise, only the quiet touch of my own movement and the soft settling sounds of a place that is used often but never mistreated. At the far end of the hall, another room waits. This one has a wide counter and a shallow basin, the kind used for rinsing and wiping down, not for heavy washing. A towel hangs straight, its edge aligned. A small brush rests beside a block of pale soap. I imagine the routine that happens here. A tool is used, then cleaned. A surface is wiped, then dried. A lid is closed, then checked once more. In the stillness, the routine itself feels like a kind of lullaby. Further on, the floor changes underfoot. The boards give way to a smoother surface, and the sound of my steps becomes even quieter. The hall narrows, and the light becomes more controlled. Along the wall are hooks, each holding a simple item. A lantern, a set of keys, a soft cap, a plain apron folded the same way every time. Nothing swings, nothing clatters. Even the keys are arranged so they do not touch. I stand there for a moment, noticing how the building encourages gentleness. Move slowly, put things back, keep the night from becoming loud. At the end of the narrow hall there is a small desk, not grand, not heavy, just enough space for a ledger, a pen, and a shallow tray where a few slips of paper wait. The chair is pushed in. The pen is capped. The ledger is closed with a ribbon, the ribbon tucked neatly into the page where someone last stopped. I do not open it. I do not need to. The room already tells me what it holds, a record of careful work done in quiet hours, a night schedule written in patient lines, the kind of tasks that protect the rest of the house while others sleep. I walk on, and the hall widens again. Somewhere, very softly, I hear the gentle sound of fabric, like a cloth being folded or a curtain being adjusted so it will hang straight. No rush, no strain, just a steady rhythm. And as I continue through these calm halls, I begin to feel that the order here is not strict. It is kind. A way of making sure nothing startles the night. A way of making sure the work can be done and then set aside, so the building can return to its quiet, clean, uncluttered, and ready for another gentle round of careful night work. The corridor continues, and the air changes in small ways that are hard to name. The stone under my steps is the same, but it feels more carefully kept. Not polished to shine, only tended. Dust does not gather in drifts here. It lies in thin, honest traces, as if even time has agreed to move quietly. Doors appear at measured intervals, each one plain, each one fitted with a latch that closes without complaint. I pass the first, and I glance in. The room is narrow and long. Work tables stand in rows, not crowded, not empty. On each table, objects are placed with patient order, a wooden ruler aligned with the table edge, a soft brush laid beside a folded cloth. Small glass jars, each with a paper label, each jar turned so the writing faces the same direction. Nothing looks precious in the loud way. The value here is in steadiness, in being ready. I step in only a little, just enough to listen. There is no voice, no conversation, no rush, yet the room is not asleep. It holds the feeling of hands that have learned to move slowly, hands that can repeat a task until it becomes calm. Along the far wall, a set of shelves holds shallow trays. Some trays carry thin metal rings, some hold dark stones that have been numbered in ink. A few carry fragments of paper, pressed flat under glass, corners weighted so they will not curl. I notice how every surface gives space to the next thing. Nothing piles up, nothing spills. Order is not used here to impress, only to prevent harm. I leave the door open as I step back out, and the corridor takes me onward. Another room, and another. One holds long tubes of brass and wood, stored in felt-lined cradles. The tubes are not pointed at anything. They rest like tools between uses, waiting for a clear night, or for a mind that is ready. In a different room, I see a large slate board leaning against a wall. Its surface is smudged with old chalk, careful arcs and small notations. The marks are light, not forceful. Someone here preferred accuracy over drama. As I pass these rooms, I begin to sense a rhythm in the house. Preparation, care, a quiet purpose that does not need to announce itself. The corridor starts to rise, almost without warning. The slope is gentle. The ceiling lifts a little higher. The sound of my steps changes, as if the stone has grown thicker, or the space above has widened. I notice the air again. It is cooler now, and drier. There is a faint scent of iron, and something like clean paper. The lamps along the wall are spaced farther apart. Their pools of light do not overlap as much. Between them, the corridor holds shadow, soft and complete. I walk through that shadow slowly, and I begin to feel the shape of what I am approaching. Not with my eyes yet, but with my sense of space. A curve somewhere ahead. A broadness that is not a room, but something that gathers rooms into itself. The last workroom I pass is smaller. Inside, a single table stands under a lamp. The lamp is shaded, its glow turned down. On the table rests a bound book, thick, plain, and worn at the edges. A pencil lies beside it, sharpened, but not new. The page is open, and the writing is neat, spaced out, as if the writer left room for thought. I do not read the words. I only take in the patience of them. Then I continue. The corridor narrows briefly, like a throat before a larger chamber, and in that narrowing sound seems to fall away. My breathing becomes louder to me, then softer again. Even my clothing feels too noisy, and I move with more care. At the end of the passage, the stonework changes. The blocks are cut in a different pattern, angled slightly, each one leaning into a curve. I place my hand against the wall. It is cool and very steady. And now I understand. The house has been leading me upward toward a dome. Not a dome that shouts its presence, but one that holds silence as its craft. I step forward, and the space opens. Above me, the ceiling rises in a smooth arc. The curve is so even that my eyes want to follow it all the way around, slow and careful, as if tracing it could teach me something. The room is round. The walls are plain. There are no banners, no bright decorations, only the clean geometry of a place made for looking. And the silence here is different. It is not empty. It is shaped. It has boundaries. It feels as if the dome has been collecting quiet for a long time, gathering it like rain in a basin until the air itself learned to rest. I stand still and let that silence settle around me. In this space, I can sense the careful work I passed through, the aligned tools, the labeled jars, the pages left open for steady hands. All of it was leading here, not to a display, but to a clear place where nothing distracts from attention. I take one slow step farther in, and I feel the curve above me again, a sheltering shape, calm, complete. For a moment, I do not need to do anything. I only need to be here, under the dome, noticing its shape and the quiet purpose that brought me to it. The dome holds its shape above me like a quiet thought. From the outside it can seem plain, a rounded roof with a narrow seam where it can open. But from within, it feels more like a shell, a careful covering. It keeps the wind from pressing too close. It keeps the night air from rushing in all at once. Inside, the world becomes simpler. I move slowly across the floor, listening to the soft sounds that belong to this place, the faint settling of wood, the mild tick of cooling metal. Everything here seems willing to wait. The light is low on purpose. It is not the kind of light that fills corners or insists on clarity. It is a small, amber glow, just enough to show the edges of instruments, just enough to keep my steps steady. In this dimness, my eyes do not have to fight. They can stay calm. They can keep their night sense. I take my time with the telescope. I do not rush to uncover it. I do not snap latches open. I touch each clasp as if I am reminding it that it is safe, that nothing sudden will happen. One fastening at a time, the protective cover lifts away with a soft, careful motion. Underneath, the body of the telescope waits in a quiet posture. It is familiar, but I treat it as if it is newly made. I check the surface with the back of my fingers, feeling for coolness, for any hint of damp. The dome has done its job. It has kept the air gentle. I adjust the mount in small increments. A slow loosening, a slow tightening. The kind of readiness that comes from patience, not force. I make sure the movements are smooth, that nothing catches or drags. The instrument should feel like it can float, even while it is anchored. Nearby, a simple cloth rests where I left it. I use it only if needed, and only with the lightest touch. Glass does not like urgency. Lenses prefer calm hands and steady breath. I glance up toward the seam in the dome. It is still closed. That matters. For now, the room stays enclosed, held. The shell remains intact, while I prepare what will soon look beyond it. There is a quiet order to these steps. Not a checklist, more like a gentle sequence. Power. Balance. alignment. Each one offered slowly, like placing stones in a line beside a path. When I finally set the eyepiece in place, I do it with a small turn and a pause. I let it settle. I let the threads meet without strain. The telescope does not need to be persuaded. It only needs to be treated with care. I stand for a moment in the dim light and breathe. The dome above me is still a shelter. The night beyond it is still distant. But the instrument is beginning to feel awake, not startled, not hurried, just ready. In this gentle shadow, I am not yet looking outward. I am simply making sure that when I do, the view will arrive quietly. The telescope waits where I left it, quiet and patient, like a small instrument that prefers not to be rushed. I set my hand on the tube for a moment, not to move it yet, only to feel its steady weight. Even in the dark, I can tell where the balance point is. That little knowledge makes everything easier. I begin with the simplest thing. I loosen one knob slowly, not all the way, just enough to let the mount breathe. Then I let it rest again. A pause. I tighten it back a touch, then loosen it once more until I find the gentle middle place where it moves without drifting. A telescope likes that kind of kindness, where nothing snaps and nothing sags. I check the tripod legs with the edge of my shoe, a light pressure. Solid ground. No wobble. Then I place my palm on each leg brace, one by one, as if I am counting them without numbers. Another pause. The finder scope needs only a small adjustment. I touch it with 2 fingers, and I remember to move from the shoulder, not just the wrist. That keeps the motion smooth. The finder shifts a fraction and stops. I breathe out and let the night stay quiet. Now the main tube, I lift it slightly, then let it settle. I guide it upward only a little, as though I am raising a lantern without spilling its light. The mount follows, slow, steady. I stop again. I listen for any small sounds. A soft click from a latch, a faint creak from a joint. Nothing more than that. The kind of sounds that tell me everything is seated the way it should be. I reach for the focuser, and I turn the knob with a careful, unhurried touch. Not to make an image sharp yet, only to make sure the mechanism is smooth. One rotation forward, then back. The motion feels even, like turning a page. I choose an eyepiece that is easy on the eyes, not too much magnification. Something that offers a wide field. Tonight is not for chasing detail. It is for resting on patterns. I slide the eyepiece in and I tighten the screw with the lightest pressure I can manage. Enough to hold, not enough to pinch. Then I remove my hand and let the whole setup stand on its own. A longer pause. Before I look through it, I look at the sky with my own eyes. I let them adjust. I do not force them to search. I simply notice what is already there, a few bright points and the softer spread of dimmer ones. When I return to the telescope, I move it toward an open patch of darkness where the stars are clean and simple. I guide it in a smooth arc. Then I stop and wait. I let the mount settle. I let my hands relax. Only then do I lean in slowly, as though I am approaching a quiet window. I do not press my face to the eyepiece. I hover at the right distance, and I blink once softly. The circle of view appears calm and contained, a small round sky held gently in glass. I make one last adjustment, almost too small to see. The stars drift, then become still. I hold the telescope steady, and I let my eyes rest where they land. There is no need to hurry. There is only the simple work of setting something in place, then letting it be. Oh, I let the night settle into its own shape, and I choose a single bright point to keep me company. Not the whole sky, not the sweep of constellations, just one clear object, steady enough to return to. I find a comfortable angle for my neck, and I let my eyes soften. At first, the bright point seems almost too sharp, a small pin of light that asks for attention, so I give it attention, gently. I do not stare with effort. I simply look, and let looking be easy. Around it, the darkness has layers. Some are deep and clean, and some are textured, like velvet with a faint grain. When I stay still, the dark begins to show more than I expected, not as new shapes, but as a quiet sense of space. I notice a simple rhythm forming. Look, then rest, look, then rest. When I rest, I do not shut my eyes tight. I let them drift, half-lidded, and I let the bright point remain in the corner of my awareness. Then I return, slowly, to the center. There is comfort in repetition. It asks nothing complicated of me. It is like a small ritual that can be done anywhere, under any honest patch of sky. Sometimes the bright object seems to waver. It is not really moving, but the air between me and it is alive. The night breathes in invisible currents, and the light trembles a little as it reaches me. I do not need to correct it. I just notice and let it be. The contrast is simple, light and dark. The light is a quiet certainty, a tiny signal that has traveled far to arrive at my eyes. The dark is not empty. It is a soft boundary that makes the light readable. I keep my attention small, like holding a smooth stone in my pocket. I let my gaze stay close to the bright point, just a few finger widths around it. The smaller this window becomes, the calmer it feels. The mind likes a manageable space, a little frame where nothing urgent happens. Now and then, I blink, slow and natural. Each blink is a gentle reset. It turns the world off for an instant, and then returns it, unchanged. That sameness can be soothing. The bright point is still there, the dark still cradles it. Look, and rest. In the resting, my shoulders loosen, my jaw unclenches without instruction. Even the muscles around my eyes stop trying to do extra work. If a thought wanders through, I let it pass like a thin cloud. I do not chase it. I return to the bright point as many times as I need. Returning is part of the pattern. And in that small pattern, steady and kind, the sky becomes simple again. Just one bright object held in a quiet field of dark. Nothing to solve, only to notice, and then to let go. Look, rest, and let the night keep its calm shape above me. The lens stays warm in my hands a moment longer, not because anything is unfinished, but because it feels kind to end slowly. I keep my gaze soft, letting the room be itself. The edges of things are gentle here. A book spine, the curve of a chair, a quiet seam in the curtains where the night presses lightly against the glass. I do not chase details. I let them come to me, the way a thought comes when I'm almost asleep. I take one last look through the camera, and I do it without the need to capture. It is only a way of noticing, a frame that reminds me I can choose where my attention rests. I notice the way lamplight settles on wood, the way shadows do not compete. They simply share the space. I breathe in, and I breathe out, and I blink slowly, as if the blink itself is a small closing door. There is a rhythm to ending a session, one that does not rush. I lower the camera and place the lens cap on with a quiet turn. A simple click, a small sentence that says, "That is enough for now." Then come the calm routines, the ones that feel more like care than procedure. A cloth passes once over the glass, not scrubbing, just a soft sweep. I check the strap. I fold it neatly. I tuck the camera into its place where it can rest. The bag closes with a muted sound, and the sound feels like a blanket being pulled up. I let my hands stay still for a moment afterward, palms resting on the tabletop. I can feel the steadiness in them. I can feel the quiet in my fingertips. Sometimes my mind tries to review everything, what I saw, what I might have missed. Tonight, I let that impulse drift by, like a thin cloud crossing the moon. Nothing needs solving right now. I allow a longer pause, long enough to notice the simple comfort of air moving in and out of me, long enough to notice the weight of my shoulders and to let them loosen. When I look around again, it is with unhurried observation, not searching, not judging, only seeing. The room holds its shapes patiently. The lamp keeps its calm circle of light. Beyond it, the corners remain dim, not mysterious, just resting. I blink again, slow and easy. Each blink feels like a gentle edit, trimming away what is not needed. I gather the small things that belong to closing. A note set back into its drawer. A pencil laid parallel to the edge of the desk. A cup rinsed and left upside down to dry. Ordinary actions, done with a quiet respect. And with each one, I feel a sense of calm completeness, without urgency. The session is closed. The way a book is closed when the reading has been good. Not slammed shut, not abandoned, simply finished for now. I take one last look, not through the lens this time, but with my own eyes, soft focus, relaxed attention. The scene does not ask me to remember it perfectly. It only asks me to be here for a moment. Then I let the light dim, or I let it stay, depending on what feels kindest. Either way, the room understands. I breathe in and out, and I let the quiet carry the work of winding down, slowly, naturally, as I return to rest. The last few steps are small ones, but I take them with care. In the dim hush beneath the dome, I move slowly, as if the air itself prefers a gentle pace. My hand finds the edge of a latch, and I feel its simple shape. Nothing complicated, just a quiet mechanism that knows its job. I check the places that need checking, one by one. A cover set back into place, a hinge settled, a thread of cord laid down so it will not tangle later. Each action is ordinary, and that is what makes it calming. The body understands simple tasks. The mind can rest inside them. I listen for any restless sound, a loose panel, a soft rattle, the faint complaint of something not yet finished. When I hear nothing, I accept that as an answer. Now I begin to close the dome, not with force, not with urgency. I let the pieces meet in their own time, a slow turn, a gentle alignment. The seal finds its place with a quiet certainty, like a book returning to its shelf. As the opening narrows, the night feels closer, not pressing in, only settling. Darkness becomes even, smooth and unbroken. The last thin strip of outside light disappears, and the space becomes a soft pocket of quiet. The air changes in a way that is almost too subtle to name. It is cooler, steadier. It holds still. Even the smallest currents seem to calm, as if they have decided there is nothing more they need to do. I stand for a moment, letting that stillness arrive fully. My breathing slows without instruction. In and out, no need to improve it. No need to count it, just letting it be there, like a steady lantern with its flame turned low. If any thoughts drift through, I do not chase them. I do not argue with them. I let them pass as if they are clouds crossing a dark field, present for a moment, then thinning, then gone. I notice the simple sensations that remain. The quiet weight of my hands, the softness of my shoulders as they drop, the way my jaw unclenches when I remember it can. There is nothing left to complete, nothing left to hold up. The dome is closed, and the calm is kept. In this settled dark, I let attention come to rest, not fixed, not rigid, just resting. Like a stone at the bottom of clear water, untouched by the surface. In and out, the space stays quiet. The air stays gentle, and the mind, little by little, becomes less interested in making new shapes. Soon there is only the steady pause, a simple, restful pause, and I allow it to continue as long as it wants.